Today, we are going to dive into something really fascinating. It's a lecture by Srila Prabhupada from way back in 1968 in Montreal, where he's breaking down a part of the ancient Srimad Bhagavatam. And in it, he explores a question that's just as relevant now as it was then.
All right, let's get right into it. The entire lecture really orbits around this one central question, which was first asked by the great sage Prahlāda Mahārāja. And it's this: what does it actually take to satisfy a supreme being? I mean, it's a huge question, right? It really forces you to take a step back and think about what we truly value.
So first things first, the lecture tackles what doesn't work. And it starts by just dismantling all the things our world tends to value the most. The argument is that from a certain point of view, all our material qualifications, well, they're basically useless for this purpose.
Prahlāda Mahārāja lists all the things we're usually scrambling for, immense wealth, a prestigious family name, being beautiful or handsome, getting a great education, being super strong, having a sharp mind, and even what's described as mystic power. But here's the kicker. The lecture argues that none of these things, not one of them on their own, can actually impress or satisfy the Supreme. Now, what's so cool about this slide is how the lecture makes this really abstract idea totally relatable. Prabhupada uses this fantastic analogy from his time. He says, look, imagine you're going to meet someone like Rockefeller. How could you possibly be proud of your own little bit of money in front of a guy like that? It's just insignificant by comparison.
And this just drives the point home with another powerful image. You've probably experienced this yourself. Think about being in an airplane, flying over a huge city. From just a few miles up, those massive skyscrapers, our greatest feats of engineering, they just look like tiny little matchboxes. The argument is that from a cosmic perspective, all our earthly achievements kind of shrink down to nothing.
Okay, so if none of that material stuff works, then what does? This is where the whole lecture takes a turn. It introduces a completely different kind of currency, one that isn't based on what you have, but on what you feel. And here it is, laid out in this really stark contrast. On one side, you have the attempt to please through material things, which is just not enough. But on the other side, you've got the path that does work, bhakti, or what's called devotional service.
So what exactly is bhakti? Well, the lecture is really clear that it's not about some empty ritual. It's an internal process. It's about purifying our senses through what's called transcendental loving service. So it's a transformation on the inside, not just some show on the outside.
And this leads to a really wild idea. According to this teaching, this ability to love, this capacity for bhakti, it isn't something you have to go out and get. It's described as something that's already inside every single one of us, just sleeping.
The lecture makes this really powerful point. It says this: inherent love for the divine. It's not something you can learn in a classroom.
It can only be awakened. See, this isn't like learning a new language or studying history. It's described as something that's already there, deep in your heart, just waiting to be woken up.
And here's another fantastic analogy to explain this. Think about someone who's fast asleep. They forget everything, right? Who they are, where they are, what they're supposed to do. But the second they wake up, bam, it all comes rushing back. Well, the lecture says our spiritual consciousness is just like that. It's just sleeping, and the whole process is about waking it up.
Okay, so if it needs to be awakened, how in the world do you do that? Well, the lecture proposes a method that's described as being surprisingly simple, something that's accessible to literally anyone, no matter who you are or where you come from.
The recommended process is chanting, and the results, as described by the 15th century mystic Lord Caitanya, are laid out in these beautiful poetic steps. First, it cleanses what he calls the mirror of the heart. Then it extinguishes that blazing fire of anxiety from our material lives. From there, it's said to spread good fortune like a waxing moon. It becomes the very life and soul of all real knowledge. And finally, it expands this incredible ocean of transcendental bliss. And the growth of this feeling is compared to a waxing moon. It's not described as some sudden lightning bolt. It's a gradual, steady increase. Every day, it gets a little brighter and a little brighter, until one day it becomes a full moon, and that love, it becomes your whole reality.
So the final outcome that's described in the lecture isn't just about feeling good on the inside. It's about a complete and total transformation of your perception. It's about literally seeing the world and the divine in a completely new way.
Now the claim here is pretty profound.
This isn't just about an abstract idea or a belief. It's about a real, tangible experience. The lecture says that you can meet God face to face, just like two people talking in a room. The only thing you have to do is make the arrangement, which of course points right back to that process of purification.
And this brings us to the final, really beautiful metaphor. This whole process is like putting an ointment of love on your eyes. It doesn't give you new eyes. It purifies the ones you already have. It clears up your material vision so you can finally see what was there all along.
So in the end, what this lecture really suggests is that if all our material stuff isn't enough, then love must be the real currency. It's the very lens through which we see reality. And that leaves us with a final, powerful question to think about. If love is the lens, how does the world change when you finally see clearly?